Hey everyone, welcome back to Coach Doc Ministries. In today's video, we're continuing our reframing series and talking about sin. What exactly it is and how does it impact our lives? It's going to be a good one. Let's get to it. So let's recap what reframing is. Reframing is the process of identifying and then changing the way situations, experiences, events, ideas, or emotions are viewed. Reframing is a key part of the deconstruction process. As our core religious beliefs get challenged, we need to redefine old concepts so they fit into the paradigm we're living in now. Religious concepts you learned as a child very rarely actually help you as an adult. And that's what reframing is, taking old concepts and applying new definitions. So what is sin? There are multiple parts to the question or topic of sin. First, in a traditional view, we are all born with this sin of Adam and Eve. It's called original sin. And this original sin affects all of humanity, as each and every person is born into or with the stain of sin upon us. We are all born bad, guilty, dirty, infected, broken. These are common words you'll hear most people use when discussing or teaching this concept of original sin. Your body, your flesh, is essentially weak and evil from the get-go and needs constant vigilance. This is the standard original sin that you're going to hear in pretty much any church you go to around the country. Second, as you live your life, you're going to sin some more. Through your actions, you will transgress some commandment or some tradition. This is the act of sinning itself and is an offense against God. It is an act of disobedience or active rebellion. And you're always in this state of sin because you are a broken human. God wants nothing to do with you when you're in this sinful state, as God hates sin and can't be around it. So even when you're forgiven, every time we transgress again, we go right back to this state. It is a constant cycle of guilt and shame, which makes up the traditional view of what it means to be a sinner. Sound familiar? So let's reframe sin. Let's take the traditional definition and redefine it into something that helps us as an adult, so it works for us here in the 21st century. Let me start off by noting that nowhere in the Hebrew Bible, Christians call the Old Testament, is found any indication of the idea that the soul is imprisoned in a corrupt body, or to seek satisfaction in this world means to lose one's soul or forfeit the covenant with God. So I note the Old Testament stance simply because if you're Jewish, the Hebrew Bible obviously is our Bible. And if you're Christian, the Hebrew Bible is the basis of the New Testament, the basis for the Christian Bible. So I wanted to point out that nowhere in the foundational text of Jewish or Christian traditions is there any idea about forfeiting the covenant with God when you sin. I think that's important to note. So let's get to reframing, starting with original sin. I want to make it very clear that we are all born created in the image of God. This is one of the greatest contributions Jewish thought has made to the Western civilization. We are made in the image of God. So each of us is born neither good nor bad, but innocent. It is our actions and our actions alone which determine whether we are righteous or wicked. You are not born into anything. You are not born into original sin. You're not born a sinner. You're not born dirty. You are born in the image of God, made in the image of God. There is no concept of original sin in the Hebrew Bible, the foundational text of the Jewish and Christian traditions. Instead, there's the powerful idea that you are created in the image of God. And on to the act of sinning. In Hebrew, in the original Hebrew, the verb to sin is actually an archery term, which means to miss the mark. So again, if we go back to the foundational text, to the original language, to the Hebrew Bible, sin isn't a state of separation. It isn't a state of rebellion against God. Instead, you missed the mark you were aiming for. That's what sin is in the Old Testament. In the Hebrew Bible, you missed the mark. You were not the best person you could be at that moment or in that situation. That's what it means to sin. Sin is a deed, not a condition of infection or impurity. Let's make no mistake here. Sin still negatively impacts your relationship with God and can negatively impact your relationship with other humans. But God doesn't turn God's back on you. God doesn't reject you in the sense the traditional definition of sin would imply. God wants you to learn from your mistakes and do better next time, to act righteously when the situation presents itself again. And it will. We can't talk about sin without touching on the consequence of sin. So the everlasting consequence, the afterlife aspect of this, we're going to talk about that in a different video. Today we're going to talk about this life. First, let's leave behind the concept that God is rewarding and punishing us according to how we act. Let's get away from that idea and instead understand the underlying lesson. Actions have consequences. You see, God holds people accountable for their own behavior. The painful things that happen to us are not punishments from misbehavior, nor are they in any way part of some grand design on God's part. Good deeds are their own reward, and misdeeds are their own punishment. Each good deed leads to another, which makes a pleasant life. Conversely, each misdeed also leads to another, which results in a confused and difficult life. So let's summarize. You are not born evil, and you are not born broken. Rather, you are created in the image of God. Sin is not a state of impurity, but a missed opportunity to be the best version of you in that moment. You are inherently worthy in the eyes of God, and your misdeeds are errors, instances of missing the mark, not acts of pure rebellion. And I'll leave you with this thought. Instead of being afraid that you will not be successful, that you are nothing more than a lowly sinner, become afraid that you will not make enough attempts to do good. Instead of focusing on your failures, focus on attempting to do more positive actions. I hope you enjoyed today's video. As always, like and subscribe if you'd like to see more of this type of content. If you have specific topics you'd like to see covered, please leave a comment below and we'll work to address them in upcoming videos. Thank you.